Tonight, NDC and MPP factions in Odododio threatening self-defense as both sides pile pressure on the police to arrest those behind the weekend violence that left several injured.
I hereby call on the police to, as a matter of urgency, arrest these NDC thugs, failing which people will be left with no other option than to defend ourselves.
If the police in Jamestown really want peace to prevail in Odododio, they know those that are causing trouble, they should go after them. They will surely pay for this one day.
Tonight, police are yet to make any arrests. We'll hear from the Peace Council as fears emerge of possible reprisals.
This is Top Story with Evans Mensah.
And Top Story is always brought to you by Gasim Cement as well as Belacqua Mineral Water. Gunshots there in a constituency known for electoral violence. And tonight, Odododio constituency here in Accra is a place of once again uneasy calm as both the NDC and MPP threaten to defend themselves following this weekend's violence that left several injured and one person currently we understand in critical condition with a gunshot wound awaiting surgery. This is what unfolded this weekend when the NDC group, led of course by the Member of Parliament, had embarked on a health walk through the streets of Odododio. Violence erupted shortly thereafter when it reached a particular point known to be a place for the NPP youth to hang out.
A significant crowd of people, mostly in NDC t-shirts, move in what appears to be a procession with loud music blaring from the speakers. From a distance, another group is seen running into this crowd of NDC t-shirt wearing people, mostly young men. Chaos breaks out as another group perched on a balcony begin to descend into what appears to be the NDC crowd. The balcony has NPP posters hanging from its walls. A man in black trousers, brown shirt, and a black cap is seen hoisting a pistol. He fires 4 shots into the air. A police officer dressed in the uniform of the motor traffic unit is seen ducking as the bullets fly above his head and the heads of others. The pistol-wielding man then appears to go after the NDC t-shirt wearing crowd. He fires 2 more shots. Many young men are then seen picking bottles from a yellow crate and throwing them into the crowd. Others are seen picking objects from the ground. A young man in dreadlocks is now seen pushing a tricycle with an NDC paraphernalia draped on top towards the balcony. He is now joined by other rioting young men who are then seen breaking the glass of the tricycle. The mob then push over the tricycle. A young man is now seen bursting the tires.
Well, my colleague Manuel Kranting has been to the Kolebu Teaching Hospital where many of the injured are still on admission. Manuel, there's one particular case that appears to be serious, suffered a gunshot wound, and I understand it's in the bone. The NDC is financing this particular surgery, we understand, must happen if he's to live.
Yes, Exactly, Evans. The NDC vice chairman who I spoke to at the Kolebu Teaching Hospital, where he was seeing the patients on admission, Collison Kofi, told me that the NDC was taking care of the full course of treatment of all of the patients. We're told that 15 people were on admission last night after the incident, but this morning they've been discharged, and we have 2. And the most critical is the gentleman who was shot in his thigh and a penetration through the bone, we're told. He was, at the time that I got to the hospital in the morning, was being prepared for surgery. And then there's another gentleman who tells me that he rode his motorbicycle and rammed it into a glass sieve because there was an approaching vehicle which he suspects was being occupied by NPP supporters. So that's what we know about the people who were on admission. About 15 of them, 13 have been discharged, 2 still receiving treatment, and we're told by the doctors that they are responding to treatment.
And the vice chairperson for the NDC in the constituency raises some questions about the conduct of the neutrality of the police in the constituency and the ability to deal with the violence.
Yes, exactly. And Evans, you remember that this particular constituency, in the past 2 months, we've seen the assault of the sitting member of parliament, the Honorable Nilanti van der Poy. And in fact, this happened, we're told, in the compound of the Jamestown police station. Now, the vice chairman of the NDC in the constituency makes a point that they have been talking times without number about the alleged bias of the police in the area, and he makes a categorical point that on the day of this incident we're talking about yesterday, the police called for reinforcement because they were helping guide the people on procession, and so when the incident happened they called for reinforcement, and to him he said that quite interestingly the reinforcement was sent to a place that is suspected to be a strong base of the NDC instead of the Blue Gate area where the incident was actually happening.
When the incident happened, the police speak intelligence. They call for reinforcement. Do you know where the reinforcement went to? They went to where we call Bode, the slaughterhouse, just to mount because they believe that is also the strong base of the NDC when it comes to maybe relaunching an attack. So the idea was that let's prevent the NDC and then let these guys continue with what they are doing. You know the number of things they destroy after the incident happens yesterday. As for the police, let me tell you, they have lost control. So, and this is what I mean,
you think that the police didn't do enough?
Oh, as for Jamestown police, they are not helping matters in Ododo. And the point is that they've lost control. You see, if you are a police officer, you always have to be fair and very firm. That is what will let you do proper policing. But the moment you compromise your policing that you are doing, trust me, it will get to a point you will not even able to even cause any arrest. Do you know that yesterday a police officer was assaulted? The whole crime officer of Jamestown was assaulted by those hoodlums and thugs, and he couldn't even arrest anybody. I'm sending a signal to the police. If they want justice to prevail in Ododo, they know these thugs, they know these hoodlums. The Jamestown police station have been moved severally to Oceanic. The Jamestown Police Command has been moved severally to Oceanic by the NPP thugs to just go and hold meetings with the political leadership of the NPP. And what the guys claim to say is that, look, we are in power. If you arrest us today, we will be released. And it has happened several locations. So if the police in Jamestown really want peace to prevail in Ododo, they know those that are causing trouble. They know the boys that are fighting for Bannerman and causing trouble in Ododo. They should go after them. When they go after them, peace will prevail in Ododo. And this goes to the police. Yesterday, they realized that what we keep on telling them, that do your policing. If I'm the constituency vice chairman and somebody commits a crime and I come, I'll tell you, deal with that person. If it is a bailable offense and I can stand surety, I will stand surety and make sure I always produce the suspect when you need that person. So why can't you do same this time around? Why can't they do same this time around? Look, there are individuals behind what is going on. So what goes around comes around. And they will surely pay for this one.
Is that an indication that you are going to retaliate?
I said that they will surely pay for this one day.
How are you going to deal with the calls from your party members who want to retaliate?
Master, retaliation, there is rule of law. That is why I keep on saying that if the NPP believes in rule of law, like Linante Balaman is saying that he has lodged over 33 complaints at Jamestown by these so-called NDC people that has defected to the NPP. Why won't you use the law to deal with them?
So that is the NDC's vice chairman for Ododododo speaking to my colleague there, Manor Crankton. Well, today the MPP has also been addressing a press conference addressed by Nilante Bannerman, who is the MPP's parliamentary candidate for Ododododo. He then also alleges that the chaos and the violence that erupted in the constituency was allegedly orchestrated by the NPP, the NDC MP for the area, Mr. Vanderpoy. Well, we'll hear from Mr. Vanderpoy shortly, who is categorically denying the allegation that he was behind anything to do with the violence that we witnessed over the weekend. But this is the MPP parliamentary candidate, Nilante Bannerman.
We are, however, not the least surprised by these acts of violence, considering the fact that in 2016, after a successful campaign launch at the famous Bukom Square, this same MP led thugs to go on a vandalization spree in the constituency on the back of yet another successful work in honor of the memory of our youth organizer, the late William Waters Rasbustego. On Saturday, the MP and his boys came running routes again without any provocation. It therefore goes without saying that these happenings in the constituency are explicitly orchestrated by the incumbent MP, whose persona and character depicts violence. This was the same person who, as the NDC parliamentary candidate in 2004, was cited for electoral fraud and violence and was injuncted from contesting that year's election. The constituency from then on experienced peaceful electioneering campaigns and elections until he resurfaced in 2012 to contest the NDC primaries, which again was characterized by violence he masterminded. Madame Esla Usue Kufu, Abu Jinapo, the late Jacob Echebilamte, and my good self have been victims of his thuggery. Ladies and gentlemen of the press, yesterday's violent and unprovoked attacks goes to confirm that the MP has not departed from his violent ways. I hereby call on the police to, as a matter of urgency, arrest these NDC thugs and let the law take its due course to serve as a deterrent to their likes. Failing which, people will be left with no other option than to defend ourselves. For now, I can only urge my people to remain calm, even in the face of these extreme provocations.
Well, Nilante Vanderpoy, who is the incumbent member of parliament for the area, tells my colleague MFA Powell that the allegations that he orchestrated the violence isn't true.
It's sad that people could just look into cameras and look into the eyes of every Ghanaian and lie about events. But tomorrow we'll be holding a press conference. We'll show to the general public what really happened. We've organized a very nice, peaceful walk. I can't just remember any time that any constituency in this country was able to put that number of people onto the street. We did it. We want to show force. We want to show that Odododo belongs to the NDC. And all of a sudden, when we had closed, we heard of something that had happened at the back. Apparently, when we had passed, in fact, when we got there, if you ask Nana Oyelita, Ambassador Zito Kakwe, Chief Binding, when we got to where the MPP base is, we have an NDC base and MPP base. So we danced with our people. As soon as we started to move, they started throwing bottles onto the street so that we couldn't walk. So we waited, and the police cleared the bottles, and then we passed. When we passed, all that we heard was that the people behind us were being pelted with Guinness bottles. MFA, let's ask ourselves two questions. Every day we pass there, in the morning around that time, you will not see more than 5 NP people in that particular base. So where did almost about 25, 30 people come from that particular day? It means that they were planned. They are planned to meet there. 2, where did they gather all these bottles from? All of a sudden, and started pelting us with it. So when they pelted our people, then people also decide to respond, because when they throw the bottles at them, some don't break, and then they try and throw back. Then what we saw was that this guy, Nyokai Amas, we've mentioned this guy's name several times. He was involved in the shooting during the registration exercise. Nothing was done. This guy was involved in the group that assaulted me in front of the Jamestown police station. Nothing was done.
But the investigations are underway, especially.
Well, how long will it take the police to investigate? How long will it take the police to? Did they even arrest him to question him? No. And then this boy pulled a gun and started firing, and the police were there, and he shot at 3 people, and then the rest started using machetes on the people. Apart from that, they peeled off concrete slabs like this, pavement blocks, hit people, old ladies, old men. Lucky enough, our boys became courageous and decided to fight back. And then they ran away. They ran away and left their shed at the mercy of the people. And then they go and organize a press conference and blame me, who had my family and everybody in the work.
But that's not the reports they gave us. They tell us that the pelting was started by your supporters.
Those who were working.
Aboboya vehicle.
It's not true. It's not true. The Aboboya guy was the announcer. This guy happened to be an MPP member in 2016. He was their public announcer in 2016. And like Maradona, we poached him. And he's become our announcer now. This is not the first time they've attacked him.
But Nilanti, this is shameful. We are told that it's supposed to be
disgraceful.
A peaceful walk turns out not so peaceful. Where are we headed?
Because we have a government who have done nothing into this country. They are so disgraceful in government, and they think that it is only violence, intimidation, and brutality that they can use to suppress the anger of the people and still maintain themselves in power. They are lying bad.
Well, the police say they still don't have anybody in custody yet. They have not arrested anybody yet. As you can hear, both sides are demanding the arrest of people they suspect to have orchestrated the violence over the weekend. Let me bring in Adam Bona, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the Security Warehouse Limited, and analyst himself. Also joining me on the telephone lines tonight is Executive Secretary of the National Peace Council, Mr. George Amo. Thank you, gentlemen, for the time here on Top Story. Mr. Bona, let me start with you. Surprised that this happened, and we saw in the videos that a police officer was actually ducking when the bullets were flying, that nobody has still been arrested.
Good evening, and Evans, to your listeners, and good evening to my good friend, Mr. Amo. Well, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised at all. I mean, probably if we don't put in more measures, we could see worse things coming our way. I am not surprised because I'm happy Mr. Amo is in your, he's joined us. When this incident happened at Kaswa, where the Minister of Special Initiative or Presidential, Hawa Kumsin, is purported to have fired those shots and admitted that she did that in full view of the cameras. The police were supposed to have given us a certain report. They were supposed to tell us ballistically whether the bullets that were fired came from a gun, a licensed weapon, as we were told, or somebody else did it. The Peace Council in that area, in the central region, have called out the police, asking that we are going into election 2020. The atmosphere doesn't look very good. And so can the police give us a report, if for nothing at all, on that particular incident? As we speak, we have a whole Central Regional Police Command. We have the CID police headquarters. We have the whole police architecture that is still there. So, Evans, we haven't had that report. And so mine is that before Odododio incident happened, Odododio had already happened, where we are told one evening that the member of parliament got his tires deflated and beaten, we are told. And the police actually, confirmed it. And now we are told that there were really no arrests. And so what happened in that area? I would say that probably it could have been worse. It could have been worse if probably the retaliation was at a full force. And so for me, I'm not surprised. We just have to tread cautiously going into 2020, Evans. I mean,
but this is also a constituency very known for its violent nature when you approach an election. The police know that it has at least 50 hotspots in Odododio alone. So when you hear that two parties within close days of each other will be back on a procession, I wonder what sort of intelligence did the police sort of have, and what did they do to ensure that this protest, knowing the hotspots, does not degenerate into what we saw.
Well, the truth is that you and I know that the intelligence set up in this country is dead. It's dead. It doesn't work. And so it's the reason why we seem to have all these security challenges we have in the country, within Accra and outside Accra. And so mine is that knowing these hotspots, what measures or mechanisms have we put in place? One would have expected that at least for these areas, there could have been some temporary halt with regards to processions and movement of people in groups and all that, just to ensure that these areas become peaceful going into election 2020. And I tell you what, Evans, I have received calls after this Odododio incident from young people from all over the country, especially in the area, threatening that they are going to arm themselves on the 7th of December. And I ask myself that, and so what are we doing to ensure that these young people won't do that? Because they are claiming that, you see, we will do it and we will not get, nothing would happen because others did it and they were not punished. And so I'm not surprised you see, blame and counter-blame, blame and counter-blame. The police that's supposed to be refereeing and making sure that those who commit crimes, after all, the police is there to ensure that we live in, absolute peace and tranquility. When people, commit crimes, they are arrested with all the evidence. But when you begin to see police officers ducking and dodging bullets, then you know that we have a problem. Because, of course, if a bullet goes into a police officer's chest, he might die. And so mine is that we've got to, once again, like I said, tread cautiously, because it looks like this, it is slipping. It's, quietly slipping. How many days before we get to D-Day? And it looks like we don't have a full grip of the security challenges that might confront, or that, we might see going into 2020, Evans.
Mr. Amu, thanks that you stay with me, because I know this is what you anticipated and the reason why you put together the roadmap, the roadmap to peaceful elections. It appears from all that we've seen, and this is not the first incident, that the political parties who sign on to the roadmap aren't respecting it, or are not using the mechanisms built into that roadmap to resolve their differences.
Yes, Evans, thank you once again, and greetings to our listeners and my friend Mr. Bona. I think it's unfortunate, very unfortunate. This is a needless event. We could have avoided this. When we had the dialogue, the two political parties who eventually are players in what happened at the weekend, openly, denounced these vigilante activities and violence, related to elections. And if you remember, the first communique that was issued on the 9th of April last year, they declared that they were going to support the police to arrest anybody who would engage in activities that is described, by Act 999 as vigilantism. So it is very unfortunate. It is really taking us back, and I am hopeful that the police would act swiftly, get this matter thoroughly investigated. Those who are found to have committed the crimes that we all saw should be dealt with according to law, and that should be very swift, so that it will serve the necessary deterrence that we are all looking out for. Because the stakes are obviously high. We cannot say that violence will not happen at all in elections. Of high stakes like this one. But I think that we've come a long way, and our leadership should be able to help all of us avoid some of these occurrences, to assure Ghanaians and our friends that we have come of age and we have the capacity to deal with matters.
But the question is, have we, and do we have the capacity, or is it simply the political will, because the politicians themselves are beneficiaries of such violence acts? Because, Odododio is such a classic example, very notorious for its election-related violence, and yet every election year it happens. Doesn't that show that the capacity maybe isn't there, the will isn't there, we simply don't care?
I think, Evans, there are multiple, drivers to what is happening in hotspots like Odududu. We, as a Peace Council, we have identified that place as a hotspot. We've designed activities to engage the political parties there. Indeed, next week, we are having a program where we are inviting the youth, from the area and others like Nima and Ashaman, for us to engage how we can prevent matters like what happened. But we have a structural problem in this country. Our youth are just walking around with very little or nothing to do. And for that matter, they have become available hands for unfortunate, politicians who would want to use them for their ends. To use them because something the roadmap rightly indicated that we should have programmatic, activities from short to long term to deal with matters of youth unemployment, and also matters involving, exclusion and this winner takes all thing that we've talked about all these years. I think we have to be very proactive and probably to sound a caution to our youth. You see, the future is not for us. I am over 50 years. The future is not for me. It is for you who is destroying it for the sake of the adult today. So we should be very mindful of the repercussions of the actions we've been asked to do, or maybe we are doing by ourselves.
And as we talk, the young men who engage in this, or those who may not have been, but a lot of them are now in hospital, one in critical condition, awaiting surgery. Very briefly, Mr. Bona, let me bring you in here. There's the video that we've seen. There's a particular gentleman wielding a pistol in brown top, black trousers, and a black cap, who was firing into the crowd. We've described it. Everybody has seen it. People in the area know him. Surprised that person at least is not behind bars now, having been arrested.
Well, for that, I would say I am surprised. I would not be able to give, except maybe for political reasons. I don't know where. I don't know him, but maybe how is he NDC? Is he MPP? Who is he? Is he just a common criminal? But such a person should have been a person of interest to the police, especially is the firearm he's wielding, is it licensed? Is he allowed to fire into the crowd? Was he supposed to even go out there in a firearm? Is he a member of the Ghana Police Service or National Security? We need to know. And so once that person is identified and the people in the area know him, one would have expected that it shouldn't have taken more than an hour or 2 hours to apprehend him. But as we speak, my checks indicate that no, he hasn't been apprehended and he's still around the area. And so it tells you that he might be somebody who is well connected. It would be the only reason why such a person is still walking around and not in detention or not remanded to prison custody or police custody. I am surprised with regards to that, and it's not looking very good for us, as a nation around this time when such persons are still parading around and probably could cause more mayhem, Evans. I'm
grateful, Mr. Bon. I'm grateful, Mr. George Jamu, for your inputs on this. We still wait to get clarity from the police in terms of the investigations that they promised over the weekend that they are doing into the incident in Odududu. Vodafone, the future is exciting. Are you ready? And isn't it amazing when your network cares about you so much so that they do amazing things for you? You guessed it. I'm talking about the Vodafone cash dropping all charges when you send money to all networks. Yes, you heard it right. It costs nothing, absolutely nothing, when you send money via Vodafone cash to all networks. Just send any amount as many times as you want to any network and pay zero charges on the money sent. So go ahead, make payments. Show your love, make contributions, send money all you want via Vodafone cash to all networks for free. Just dial *110# to send cash for free. Vodafone, are you ready?